we see a nation founded on the principles that have given our own nation life for more than 2 centuries. Israel's Declaration of Independence expresses those ideals eloquently. And I quote, "The state of Israel will be based on freedom, justice, and peace, and envisaged by the prophets of Israel. It will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all of its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex." It goes on to say that it will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. It goes on and concludes it will safeguard the holy places of all religions. I have seen Israel in times of celebration and times of sorrow, times of confidence and times of doubt. But one lesson has been constant. Israelis are a people of deep reverence for the land of Israel and an extraordinary willingness and courage to serve its cause. Israelis can teach all of us what it means to love country and to risk all for its survival and success. I told Zipny Livni that I would be visiting for the 12th time Israel this summer. And I know that and in fact, I've had a number of people who are telling me they're going to visit with me, and we're glad to be with them. I know that I'll be traveling to a nation deeply unsure of what the future holds. Across the Middle East, we are witnessing convulsive change. And if we've learned anything, we've learned this: history never plays out with the sureness of history books. Its transformations can be chaotic and often frightening and dangerous. However, they can also be full of hope and apprehension in equal measure. We have seen the bravery of a young generation risking its life for universal freedoms. We've heard words like these from a protester in Tahrir Square. He said this: "I'm here because everyone needs to feel like a free human being." That, of course, is what Israel provides alone in that quadrant of the world. What an example Israel can be for those who seek to establish freedom and democracy in their own lands. However, we've also seen that bravery gunned down over long nights of brutal repression in Damascus, Dara, and Benghazi from some quarters. We hear bright promises of a new era of Arab democracy. From others, we hear prudent warnings that extremism and radicalism love a vacuum of power. There is hope that regimes across the Middle East will be pressured to attend more closely to their people's grievances, rather than using Israel as a convenient scapegoat. There is, however, also fears that despots will turn again to that scapegoating as they struggle to cling to power. What Prime Minister Netanyahu said of the uprising in Egypt holds true across the Middle East. Netanyahu said, "No one knows what the future will bring. Changing the status quo can definitely lead to a better outcome." This happened, he observed, 2 decades ago in Berlin, in Prague, in Bucharest. But he went on to say that change can also lead to worse outcomes: worse for freedom, worse for human rights, and worse for peace. But as the leaders of our nations watch this unfolding history with a wary eye, we make this firm commitment to do everything in our power to ensure the security, safety, and sovereignty of the State of Israel. to ensure the survival of democracy in a region where its survival has always been at risk, where its light has shone all the more brightly for shining so often alone. The United States must maintain its commitment to the U.S.-Israeli Memorandum of Understanding and to ensure that Israel's security funding is provided in full. Eric Cantor and I have pledged to work together to achieve that end. And the world must know this as well. As they saw the United States respond to the threats to citizens in Benghazi, surely they must be confident that the United States will respond in kind to any threatened assault on the people, our brothers and sisters in Israel. At a time when Iran's nuclear ambitions threaten the safety of all Israelis and the stability of the entire region and indeed the world, we must stand firm against the Tehran regime's nuclear pursuit. We must continue to stand by the strong sanctions and diplomatic pressure that are holding that dangerous threat back. President Obama takes that threat with the seriousness it deserves. He has resolutely led the global effort to stop it, and that effort must be successful. And I know Bill Daley, the Chief of Staff, will focus on that issue. Bill Daley, thank you very much for your leadership in that effort. We must continue to remind the world of the disastrous global implications of a nuclear-armed Iran, and we must ramp up the pressure to prevent that outcome. And even at a time when the future of the peace process looks as uncertain as it has ever been, let us reassert our faith that there is only one just and secure outcome for Israelis and for Palestinians alike: a future of two states for two peoples, one a homeland for the Jewish people, the other a homeland for the Palestinian people, both living in peace and security with one another. And if that peace and security are to exist, Israel's borders must be defensible and must reflect reality on the ground. The reconciliation of Hamas and Fatah puts the future in doubt, to the detriment of the Palestinian people. But in the face of those who put their faith in violence, along with those who seek a peace that is imposed from outside, let us make this clear: peace can only be achieved by a return to the negotiating table without preconditions. I believe in Palestinian statehood. but I stand strongly against a solution that is either declared, either unilaterally or by an international body. Peace cannot be imposed, it must be negotiated. Ladies and gentlemen, we must speak with crystal clarity that we will not compromise or temporize with an alliance that includes terrorists and international criminals. That principle is enshrined in U.S. law, which I was proud to support. And in accordance with that law, we will not fund a government that fails to accept previous agreements and recognize the Jewish state of Israel's right to exist. Robert Kennedy said to a group of students in South Africa, "Our future may lie beyond our vision, but it is not completely beyond our control." And he added, "It is the shaping impulse of America that neither fate, nor time, nor the irresistible tides of history, but the work of our own hands, matched to reason and principle, that will determine our destiny." Today, as then, the future is beyond our vision, but let us meet it with confidence and resolve. When we are called to leave behind what we know, let us go bravely and willingly. Let's go with faith that the lasting things we carry with us will be more than enough to sustain us. Let us go with the conviction that in times like these are born the qualities of vigilance, public-spirited, fidelity to purpose and principle, conviction and courage that make nations lastingly great. Israel is such a nation. America is such a nation. Together, we are better. While what tomorrow brings may be uncertain, let us confront those tomorrows with the certainty of our own immutable bond. Together, Israel and the United States have represented and fought to sustain the values for which so many in the Arab world now strive. Let us neither delude ourselves about the evil that exists in the hearts of too many, nor be dissuaded from responding to the good in the hearts of others. In these times, we come together as friends of Israel to share our apprehensions and our hopes, to share our predictions, our insights, our analysis, to discuss and debate, to do the work that is the heart of democracy and the secret of democracy's success. And in these times of great flux, we can count on at least this blessing. What is certain, what is lasting, what is true, stand out all the more brightly. And first among those facts is the unbreakable bond between our two nations. And from a foundation so strong and so deeply rooted, there is nothing we cannot endure together, nothing we cannot accomplish together. May God continue to bless the state of Israel and the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back AIPAC President Lee Rosenberg.
Since I came to know President Obama more than a decade ago, when he was a state senator from Illinois, I had the privilege of sharing many great moments with him in our hometown of Chicago, in Israel, and more recently in the White House. However, Mr. President, I'm mystified why I remain one of your few friends not to share any moments, great or otherwise, as your teammate on the basketball court. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored today to welcome to AIPAC, to the home of America's pro-Israel movement, the President of the United States, Barack Obama. Mr. President, we look forward to your remarks, but first, I must share a short reflection about you, my friend, and our President. The most important thing that I can convey in welcoming you this morning is what I personally know to be your commitment to the unshakable, unbreakable relationship between the United States and Israel. As you have said both publicly and privately, the relationship between the United States and the Jewish state of Israel is anchored in both common interests and shared values. You understand with great depth that Israel is the only country in the Middle East that shares America's commitment to freedom, democracy, and peace. You have demonstrated through your support of more than $3 billion in critical security assistance for Israel that investing in the Jewish state is investing in the one pillar of stability in an unstable region. It should also be noted, and we thank you, for publicly and frequently calling for increased funding for the Jewish state. Even in this extremely difficult budget environment, you have fought for an increase in assistance. And in addition, you understand that small democracies like Israel are particularly vulnerable. That is why we appreciate that you proposed, and Israel received, more than $200 million to fund Israel's Iron Dome rocket defense system. This new technology is protecting the people of Israel from rocket fire from the Iran-backed terrorist group, Hamas. And Mr. President, you have elevated the issue of Iran here in the United States and in the international community. We appreciate your determination to ensure that preventing Iran from developing a nuclear weapon is an American priority. You have used your influence in World Fora to convince the West that stopping Iran from developing a nuclear weapon is a security imperative that requires focused, biting sanctions now. Mr. President, we appreciate your ongoing efforts to bring a lasting peace between Israel and the Palestinians. We know that you share our profound disappointment that Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has chosen to join forces with the terrorist organization Hamas and refuses to come back to direct negotiations with Prime Minister Netanyahu. As you know from your meeting this past Friday, the Prime Minister is a leader ready to join with you and engage in serious direct talks that could lead to peace. We trust that you will use the power of your office to persuade President Abbas to return to the table and let him know that any effort to pursue a unilateral declaration of a Palestinian state at the United Nations will be opposed by the United States. And finally, Mr. President, you sent a powerful message 2 weeks ago on behalf of every American and every person around the world that cares about freedom and democracy. No terrorist is safe. Those who commit terror against America will not elude punishment. And when you kill innocent citizens of the United States, you will inevitably face the long arm of American justice. The operation that you ordered that resulted in the death of the face of Islamic radicalism and one of the world's worst mass murderers was heroic. Thank you, Mr. President, for ridding the world of Osama bin Laden. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 44th President of the United States, President Barack Obama.
Terrific. Absolutely. You doing all right? Okay. Sorry. No, don't worry. Good morning. Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please have a seat. Thank you. What a remarkable crowd. Thank you, Rosie, for your very kind introduction. I did not know you play basketball. I will take your word for it. Rosie, thank you for your many years of friendship. Back in Chicago, when I was just getting started in national politics, I reached out to a lot of people for advice and counsel. And Rosie was one of the very first. When I made my first visit to Israel, after entering the Senate, Rosie, you were at my side every step of that profound journey through the Holy Land. So I want to thank you for your enduring friendship, your leadership, and for your warm introduction today. I also want to thank David Victor, Howard Corr, and all the board of directors. And let me say that it is wonderful to look out and see so many great friends, including a very large delegation from Chicago. Alan Solo, Howard Green, thank you all. I want to thank the members of Congress who are joining you today, who do so much to sustain the bonds between the United States and Israel, including Eric Cantor, Steny Hoyer, and the tireless leader I was proud to appoint as the new chair of the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We're joined by Israel's representative to the United States, Ambassador Michael Oren. And we're joined by one of my top advisors on Israel and the Middle East for the past 4 years, and who I know is going to be an outstanding ambassador to Israel, Dan Shapiro. Dan has always been a close and trusted advisor and friend, and I know that he will do a terrific job. And at a time when so many young people around the world are standing up and making their voices heard, I also want to acknowledge all the college students from across the country who are here today. No one has a greater stake in the outcome of events that are unfolding today than your generation. And it's inspiring to see you devote your time and energy to help shape that future. Now, I'm not here to subject you to a long policy speech. I gave one on Thursday in which I said that the United States sees the historic changes sweeping the Middle East and North Africa as a moment of great challenge, but also a moment of opportunity for greater peace and security for the entire region, including the State of Israel. On Friday, I was joined at the White House by Prime Minister Netanyahu, and we reaffirmed that fundamental truth that has guided our presidents and prime ministers for more than 60 years, that even while we may at times disagree, as friends sometimes will, the United States and Israel are unbreakable, and the commitment of the United States to the security of Israel is ironclad. A strong and secure Israel is in the national security interests of the United States, not simply because we share strategic interests, although we do both seek a region where families and children can live free from the threat of violence. It's not simply because we face common dangers, although there can be no denying that terrorism and the spread of nuclear weapons are grave threats to both our nations. America's commitment to Israel's security flows from a deeper place, and that's the values we share. As two people who struggled to win our freedom against overwhelming odds, we understand that preserving the security for which our forefathers and foremothers fought must be the work of every generation. As two vibrant democracies, we recognize that the liberties and freedoms we cherish must be constantly nurtured. And as the nation that recognized the State of Israel moments after its independence, we have a profound commitment to its survival as a strong, secure homeland for the Jewish people. We also know how difficult that search for security can be, especially for a small nation like Israel, living in a very tough neighborhood. I've seen it firsthand. When I touched my hand against the Western Wall and placed my prayer between its ancient stones, I thought of all the centuries that the children of Israel had longed to return to their ancient homeland. When I went to Sderot, saw the daily struggle to survive in the eyes of an 8-year-old boy who lost his leg to a Hamas rocket. And when I walked among the Hall of Names at Yad Vashem, I was reminded of the existential fear of Israelis when a modern dictator seeks nuclear weapons and threatens to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Because we understand the challenges Israel faces, I and my administration have made the security of Israel a priority. It's why we've increased cooperation between our militaries to unprecedented levels. It's why we're making our most advanced technologies available to our Israeli allies. It's why, despite tough fiscal times, we've increased foreign military financing to record levels. And that includes additional support beyond regular military aid for the Iron Dome anti-rocket system. A powerful example of American-Israeli cooperation. A powerful example of American-Israeli cooperation which has already intercepted rockets from Gaza and helped save Israeli lives. So make no mistake, we will maintain Israel's qualitative military edge. You also see our commitment to our shared security in our determination to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Here in the United States, we've imposed the toughest sanctions ever on the Iranian regime. And at the United Nations, under our leadership, we've secured the most comprehensive international sanctions on the regime, which have been joined by allies and partners around the world. Today, Iran is virtually cut off from large parts of the international financial system. And we're going to keep up the pressure. So let me be absolutely clear. We remain committed to preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Its illicit nuclear program is just one challenge that Iran poses. As I said on Thursday, the Iranian government has shown its hypocrisy by claiming to support the rights of protesters while treating its own people with brutality. Moreover, Iran continues to support terrorism across the region, including providing weapons and funds to terrorist organizations. So we will continue to work to prevent these actions, and we will stand up to groups like Hezbollah who exercise political assassination and seek to impose their will through rockets and car bombs. You also see our commitment to Israel's security in our steadfast opposition to any attempt to delegitimize the State of Israel. As I said at the United Nations last year, Israel's existence must not be a subject for debate, and efforts to chip away at Israel's legitimacy will only be met by the unshakable opposition of the United States. So when the Durban Review Conference advanced anti-Israel sentiment, we withdrew. In the wake of the Goldstone report, we stood up strongly for Israel's right to defend itself. When an effort was made to insert the United Nations into matters that should be resolved through direct negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians, we vetoed it. And so, in both word and deed, we have been unwavering in our support of Israel's security. And it is precisely because of our commitment to Israel's long-term security that we have worked to advance peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Now, I have said repeatedly that core issues can only be negotiated in direct talks between the parties. And I indicated on Thursday that the recent agreement between Fatah and Hamas poses an enormous obstacle to peace. No country can be expected to negotiate with a terrorist organization sworn to its destruction. And we will continue to demand that Hamas accept the basic responsibilities of peace, including recognizing Israel's right to exist and rejecting violence and adhering to all existing agreements. And we once again call on Hamas to release Gilad Shalit, who has been kept from his family for 5 long years. And yet, no matter how hard it may be to start meaningful negotiations under current circumstances, we must acknowledge that a failure to try is not an option. The status quo is unsustainable. And that is why on Thursday I stated publicly the principles that the United States believes can provide a foundation for negotiations toward an agreement to end the conflict and all claims, the broad outlines of which have been known for many years and have been the template for discussions between the United States, Israel, and the Palestinians since at least the Clinton administration. I know that stating these principles on the issues of territory and security generated some controversy over the past few days. I wasn't surprised. I know very well that the easy thing to do, particularly for a president preparing for re-election, is to avoid any controversy. I don't need Ram to tell me that. Don't need Axelrod to tell me that. But I said to Prime Minister Netanyahu, I believe that the current situation in the Middle East does not allow for procrastination. I also believe that real friends talk openly and honestly with one another. So I want to share with you some of what I said to the Prime Minister. Here are the facts we all must confront. First, the number of Palestinians living west of the Jordan River is growing rapidly and fundamentally reshaping the demographic realities of both Israel and the Palestinian territories. This will make it harder and harder, without a peace deal, to maintain Israel as both a Jewish state and a democratic state. Second, technology will make it harder for Israel to defend itself in the absence of a genuine peace. Third, a new generation of Arabs is reshaping the region. A just and lasting peace can no longer be forged with 1 or 2 Arab leaders. Going forward, millions of Arab citizens have to see that peace is possible for that peace to be sustained. And just as the context has changed in the Middle East, so too has it been changing in the international community over the last several years. There's a reason why the Palestinians are pursuing their interests at the United Nations. They recognize that there is an impatience with the peace process, or the absence of one, not just in the Arab world, in Latin America, in Asia, and in Europe. And that impatience is growing, and it's already manifesting itself in capitals around the world. And those are the facts. I firmly believe, and I repeated on Thursday, that peace cannot be imposed on the parties to the conflict. No vote at the United Nations will ever create an independent Palestinian state, and the United States will stand up against efforts to single Israel out at the United Nations or in any international forum. Israel's legitimacy is not a matter for debate. That is my commitment. That is my pledge to all of you. Moreover, we know that peace demands a partner, which is why I said that Israel cannot be expected to negotiate with Palestinians who do not recognize its right to exist. And we will hold the Palestinians accountable for their actions and for their rhetoric. But the march to isolate Israel internationally and the impulse of the Palestinians to abandon negotiations will continue to gain momentum in the absence of a credible peace process and alternative. And for us to have leverage with the Palestinians, to have leverage with the Arab states and with the international community, the basis for negotiations has to hold out the prospect of success. And so in advance of a 5-day trip to Europe, in which the Middle East will be a topic of acute interest, I chose to speak about what peace will require. There was nothing particularly original in my proposal. This basic framework for negotiations has long been the basis for discussions among the parties, including previous U.S. administrations. But since questions have been raised, let me repeat what I actually said on Thursday, not what I was reported to have said. I said that the United States believes that negotiations should result in 2 states, with permanent Palestinian borders with Israel, Jordan, and Egypt, and permanent Israeli borders with Palestine. The borders of Israel and Palestine should be based on the 1967 lines with mutually agreed swaps, so that secure and recognized borders are established for both states. The Palestinian people must have the right to govern themselves and reach their potential in a sovereign and contiguous state. As for security, every state has the right to self-defense. And Israel must be able to defend itself by itself against any threat. Provisions must also be robust enough to prevent a resurgence of terrorism, to stop the infiltration of weapons, and to provide effective border security. And a full and phased withdrawal of Israeli military forces should be coordinated with the assumption of Palestinian security responsibility in a sovereign and non-militarized state. And the duration of this transition period must be agreed, and the effectiveness of security arrangements must be demonstrated. Now, that is what I said. And it was my reference to the 1967 lines with mutually agreed swaps that received the lion's share of the attention, including just now. And since my position has been misrepresented several times, let me reaffirm what 1967 lines with mutually agreed swaps means. By definition, it means that the parties themselves, Israelis and Palestinians, will negotiate a border that is different than the one that existed on June 4th, 1967. That's what mutually agreed upon swaps means. It is a well-known formula to all who have worked on this issue for a generation. It allows the parties themselves to account for the changes that have taken place over the last 44 years. It allows the parties themselves to take account of those changes, including the new demographic realities on the ground and the needs of both sides. The ultimate goal is 2 states for 2 people. Israel as a Jewish state and the homeland for the Jewish people, and the state of Palestine as the homeland for the Palestinian people. Each state enjoying self-determination, mutual recognition, and peace. If there is a controversy, then, it's not based in substance. What I did on Thursday was to say publicly what has long been acknowledged privately. I've done so because we can't afford to wait another decade, or another 2 decades, or another 3 decades to achieve peace. The world is moving too fast. The world is moving too fast. The extraordinary challenges facing Israel will only grow. Delay will undermine Israel's security and the peace that the Israeli people deserve. Now, I know that some of you will disagree with this assessment. I respect that. And as fellow Americans and friends of Israel, I know we can have this discussion. Ultimately, it is the right and the responsibility of the Israeli government to make the hard choices that are necessary to protect a Jewish and democratic state for which so many generations have sacrificed. And as a friend of Israel, I'm committed to doing our part to see that this goal is realized. And I will call not just on Israel, but on the Palestinians, on the Arab states, and the international community to join us in this effort, because the burden of making hard choices must not be Israel's alone. But even as we do all that's necessary to ensure Israel's security, even as we are clear-eyed about the difficult challenges before us, and even as we pledge to stand by Israel through whatever tough days lie ahead, I hope we do not give up on that vision of peace. For if history teaches us anything, if the story of Israel teaches us anything, it is that with courage and resolve, progress is possible. Peace is possible. The Talmud teaches us that so long as a person still has life, they should never abandon faith. And that lesson seems especially fitting today. For so long as there are those across the Middle East and beyond who are standing up for the legitimate rights and freedoms which have been denied by their governments, the United States will never abandon our support for those rights that are universal. And so long as there are those who long for a better future, we will never abandon our pursuit of a just and lasting peace that ends this conflict with two states living side by side in peace and security. This is not idealism. It is not naivete. It is a hard-headed recognition that a genuine peace is the only path that will ultimately provide for a peaceful Palestine as the homeland of the Palestinian people and a Jewish state of Israel as the homeland of the Jewish people. That is my goal, and I look forward to continuing to work with AIPAC to achieve that goal. Thank you. God bless you. God bless Israel, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Remarks by President Obama to the audience gathered here at the Washington Convention Center in downtown D.C. It's coming on the heels of his speech last week on the Middle East and his meetings with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, when the president called for basing the Israeli-Palestinian peace talks on borders that existed before the 1967 Arab-Israeli War. We also heard from Congressman Steny Hoyer of Maryland, the minority whip in the House. You can find portions of this AIPAC conference on our website, cspan.org, as well as on the C-SPAN video library. And we'll have the president's remarks for you again tonight at 6:30 here on C-SPAN.